Hi. This is Alex S. Johnson. I'm the founder of Nocturnicorn Books. We're a um, boutique literary imprint. I'm based in Carmichael, California. We're also published in Cannes, France by Dean M. Drinkle. And we put out amazing books that have never been, the likes of which have never been seen before. As our lineups for our books include the best of literature. I'm not just talking about dark fiction, where we have people like Gemma Files, Anna Taborska, John Shirley, you name it, short of Stephen King, right? We have some of the biggest names in the business. For the beat literature and beat adjacent literature, we have people also a crossover. Did I fail to mention Poppy Z. Bright, um, Graham
Huge
Masterton,
name.
Maxim Jakubowski, John Palisano, um, and Garrett Cook. And Garrett Cook, by the way, just joined up with the Burning Hearts anthology. He's one of the biggest names in, Bizarro. He basically is one of the people who created Bizarro. He's responsible for Bizarro, and he's an editor with Clash Books, right? They put out people like Kathy Koja, and so we have more than 100 contributors, including the guy who wrote the song Bela Lugosi's Dead, David J. Haskins, who's contributing to two of my anthologies. He wrote an original poem for the Burroughs tribute, which I'm going to read. And so we have our special guest here today. We have Lynne Bronstein and Amelie Franck, and they're going to be Frank. Is it Frank or Frank?
Frank.
Frank. Okay.
Frank, like Frank.
I like Franck. It sounds
Um,
so
it's
European.
Frankenstein.
It's Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein. Following in
I
his
made
grand
Lynn laugh. That's a good thing.
following in his grandfather's footsteps. Um, it's taffeta, darling. Okay, so we're going to start out with without any further ado about nothing. With Lynne Bronstein is going to read some of her poems.
Hi, well, I thought I would start with the poem that is going to be in Alex's anthology, Rock You Like a Hurricane, which is for
Yes,
hurricane relief.
yes.
And the hurricane image that immediately came to my mind was the movie Key Largo from 1948, where a hurricane strikes the island of Key Largo and
Hmm.
this somewhat decrepit hotel where a gangster is keeping everybody hostage.
Oh, wow.
And the gangster's mistress, Gay Dawn, played by Claire Trevor,
Hmm.
has become an alcoholic. She used to be a singer and she still tries to keep herself up looking quite glamorous, but she needs a drink constantly.
Uh-huh.
I think it's like an anesthetic, you know.
Right.
And her boyfriend, Edward G. Robinson, is oh, he,
Yep,
he,
boyfriend material.
yeah, right. He bribes her and says, "Oh, I'll let you have a drink if you sing for us."
Oh, lovely.
Because he knows that she's so messed up that she's probably going to blow it, so he won't have to give her the drink.
Right.
But she sings anyway. I think in her heart she knows she's going to screw up her singing,
Mhm.
but she is so desperate for a drink. And there is something of a certain kind of courage in the fact that she gets up there and goes way off key, and it's really correct. Well, this hurricane's also blowing outside, so this is called Gay Dawn Sings While the Wind Wails. I'm singing for a drink with the wind as my backup band, and the wind is as rattly as my voice. And I need that drink. I don't think I can sing. I am not ready. No, not in front of all these people. They are too important, and I am an old wheeze, a common drunk, dressed up and painted. Though I used to be a diva in the speaks when I was younger. But now I am old and creaky like this hotel, straining to stay upright in this raging wind. And I sing. He's the kind of man needs the kind of woman like me. No one knows how difficult it is to produce these notes. And in spite of it all, he says I was rotten. Please give me a drink. Let me drink from the water that surrounds this island, salty though it may be. Let me drink of the water that pours from the sky like gray, angry wine. The water that is drowning the sad Seminoles who have been pounding on the door. Please give me a drink. For one drink, I will give you more than a song. I will give you release. No matter how drunk and a rotten singer I am, I can still slip my slender hand unnoticed into his pocket and steal his gun for use by the hero who got up to give me a drink in this storm, in this natural fury of death. And with that drink and with my hand on the gun, I think I have quenched my thirst.
Yeah, I love it. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Now I'm going to segue right from that to one of the poems in Nasty Girls. You know, the concept of this book, and I'm holding up the beautifully designed cover, which my roommate James Everett Jones designed,
Nice.
has photographs or paintings in some cases of the women who are in this book. Each of them is someone who actually lived. Each of them is a woman who didn't behave properly.
I love it.
And so each of them, like Kay Dawn, who's a fictional character, but these are real women who I put these poems in their own words with their opinions. And since I was watching the movie version of Ragtime last night, which among its characters includes the real life Evelyn Nesbit, who's a early 1900s figure of scandal because her husband shot her lover. This is my Evelyn Nesbit poem that I'm going to read. A poor girl can't be ugly, but I often wish I had been. My face was seen once too often, not to mention the rest of me. I was 12 when an artist first asked me to pose. My beauty could earn me more money than I could ever by clerking at Wanamaker's. I made sure to give my mother hell if she didn't let me continue to pose. She said, just don't let them paint you nude. Of course I did. There's always more money when flesh comes that cheap. The man I loved was Stanny. I loved his size, his burly style, his huge twirling mustache. Maybe it was indeed that glass of champagne that made the room wobble. I only know I fell for him. He would have been my husband, except he already had a wife. So I married that spoiled rich brat, Harry Thaw. He shot my true love, and everyone put the blame on me because I was so beautiful. You never hear of men shooting each other for the love of plain girls. Plain girls shoot themselves.
Oh,
I wish I had the strength to do what Lizzie did. She sensibly bowed out of the terrible show, but I had no money. A poor girl can't be too beautiful. No help from the Thaw family, no help from Stanny's folks. No one wanted me except for one reason. They wanted to see the flesh that had caused all the fighting. Temptation made manifest. Eve after the expulsion from Eden. I paid my own way, dizzy on vaudeville stages, holding on for literal, dear life to that red velvet swing. Click went the cameras as I posed for America's salivating tabloid boards, taking it on the chin for everyone's lust.
Nice.
And as you had asked me if I had something about David Bowie,
Yes,
you know our friend Marie Lecrivan, a great poet and editor,
of course. Yeah.
anthology Ashes to Stardust, a David Bowie tribute anthology.
When did that come out? Because I missed that. I would totally have contributed.
Early in 23.
Oh yeah, I was actually offline and I'm still very sick, so I didn't, but I've contributed to about four or five of her books. Yeah.
She might still have copies of it.
Oh, cool. I would love to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, ask her about it. You know, she might still have a copy. At any rate,
Nice.
I'm going to read my David Bowie poem from this called Masks.
Yay.
So many masks the man wore. Long-haired astronaut, lost in the stars, rocking philosopher, reconciled to changes,
Uh-huh.
flamed androgen, anyone's lover, insane lad, jewel-studded canine,
Mm.
lanky fellow envying and ogling young Americans,
Ah, nice.
easy to lose track, fallen album behind the most recent persona. By the 1980s, he'd roared back, a starman fallen to earth, ready to dance and experience modern love. My neighbor's young son would come to watch music videos with me, and he loved the video for Ashes to Ashes because it made him laugh that the starman was a clown.
Mhm.
Adults saw a drowning clown marching in his funeral rites, saying goodbye to the earlier roles, schmutzing his own creations, expressing guilt too much.
Switching.
Now, I wrote this, of course, before the book came out, so it's 4 years now since he left us, and of course, it's more than 8 years now. His exit following a strange silence, thinner than ever, not wanting us to know that he could drown, could crash, could hit an all-time low.
Mm.
What would he think of the current time? Could he see us all in our masks, trying to make ourselves safe? Was that what he too was doing? Trying on one mask after another, leaving himself room to breathe and adopting the roles to save his true self for future life. Starman, Hindu, Diamond Dog, Clown. Could he give us some of that spirit to learn to live and in time shed our masks and somehow not drown?
That's beautiful. Would you allow me to republish that in my David Bowie book?
If Marie consents, and she probably
Okay,
will, certainly.
okay, okay, because
I didn't want to submit it without asking her, but
of course,
I'm sure she'll agree to it.
I'll ask
I
Marie.
think she has first North American rights, and then after that they revert to you. So, but it's good courtesy to ask Marie. Marie did us a huge favor by releasing that anthology, and we needed it so much after he passed.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think we needed it too because of COVID. That was the point of my poem, is that we were wearing masks there too.
right.
Something that's
Interesting.
always been a little uncomfortable
Yeah,
about COVID masks, despite the fact that we needed them and we can still need them at times, is that we can't see as much of the person's face and it feels a little impersonal. And of course, that is a function sometimes of masks, unless it's a mask with a face on it.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Yeah. I think I said before we started recording, or maybe not, that David J. Haskins has very generously given me permission to reprint the lyrics to the day that David Bowie died. So we're going to have, David J. Haskins on board as well as Tara Van Flower from the band Lycia. And I guarantee it's going to be another all-star lineup. So really looking forward to that one. Yeah. So that was brilliant.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome, to read anything else you would like, or we could go to Amelie or
Let's go to
okay.
Oh dear, here I am.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
You're a turquoise, what did I say, turquoise stained
Stained glass
glass
window.
window. Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing these shirts you can buy online. At least I didn't wear my Johnny Quest shirt today, which is just covered with Hanna-Barbera adventure characters. But I thought I'd stick with the theme of Bowie and chaos. Although
Nice.
mine's going to be more leaning towards Collie and chaos.
It's all good.
So did you want me to read something right now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, here's a cheerful title. My much of my work is about extinction. And
Me too, actually. But
yeah,
yeah,
well, some of it's personal extinction, some of it is species extinction,
yeah,
some of it is extinction of ideas, extinction of
right.
great thinkers. We lost a giant
We
yesterday,
lost David
David
Lynch.
Lynch. Um,
Yeah.
David Lynch was he was experimenting and understood and was connected to thought forms that most human beings do not have access to. He was unique in his capacity to
Yes.
imagine states of mind and still translate them in ways that were accessible to large audiences.
I
He was
agree.
not an esoteric art house director
I
by
don't think
any
so.
means.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
very, very, very much, of the people and for the people. I love especially Wild at Heart. That's just a
mhm.
personal favorite. The Barry Gifford, who also wrote the original screenplay to Lost Highway, which had the soundtrack was produced by Trent Reznor. That's one of my all-time. I mean, those films. And you worked on The Straight Story?
Yeah, I did. I worked on the marketing of The Straight Story, which was his story about a true story about an old man who wanted to have a reunion with his brother before he died. Um, World War II vet played by Richard Farnsworth in an
Yes.
Oscar nominated performance. And he travels basically on a John Deere tractor across a state to get to see his brother before he goes.
Yeah.
And it was a G-rated picture of all things when you consider this came from the creator of Blue Velvet, and
Right.
stunningly moving. There is a scene in the film where Farnsworth and another character actor playing another World War II vet, they sit around in a bar having beers and just remembering and missing their buddies. And that's what World War II soldiers called each other. They were each other's buddies. You
Yes.
watched out for your buddy.
Right.
And Al Lynch, who was an early boomer, even understood what it meant to have fought in that war and what the relationships meant to people, and for him to translate that into a family film about not only dying, but loss and what remains. It's an extraordinary accomplishment when you consider Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart,
Right.
Mulholland Highway, and then, of course, Mulholland Drive, and of course,
Mulholland Drive.
Twin Peaks.
Right. Well,
Can you
there
do
was,
anything more like a bunch of ready-mades than Twin Peaks?
but there was another one that I have, like the director's cut. It was like 4 hours or so, and it takes place in LA, and I forget the title of it. It's just ingenious.
You're not talking about Inland Empire, are you?
Um, I think I may be talking about Inland. Yes, I am talking about
Are
Inland
there
Empire. Yeah.
bunny people in it?
Yes, there are bunny people. I
I
love the
couldn't
bunny
watch that. I
people.
had to stop
Oh
watching
my
it because
gosh.
it was so much of a strain on me psychologically. I'm like,
Okay.
what is Laura Dern talking about? I don't know. I'm not smart enough for this movie.
Well, one of my friends, actually, she's not really a anyway, it is what it is, but a woman named Renee Diedrich that we worked on the Dirty Girls anthology with Iris Berry and Lydia Lunch and people like that, but especially it's known for the iconic cover of of um of Iris holding she's clad only in William S. Burroughs typewriter. And my friend who put together the anthology, name's Renee Diedrich, who's also an educator with LAUSD. Um, there was, shall we say, there was some shake, there was some mushrooms, and there were some cookies. And when I went to, we did a reading, Iris, and is there something cherry? I forget. I got the two mixed up, even though I was a fan of Iris's before I met her. But Linda Cherry, is it Lisa Cherry? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I might. I'm not
Okay.
following. I'm not tracking, but that may be more a function of where I'm at with my medicine right now. And
Oh, okay.
yesterday as well was kind of a busy, stressful day. So don't mind me for not
Oh,
tracking.
oh, okay. No worries. I'm on the struggle bus with brain trauma. So, but, so, okay, just to simplify, I did a reading with Iris Berry at this Redondo Beach coffee house. And, I was, I'd had some of the cookies that had a lot of shake in it and a lot of sort of, psilocybin enhanced truffles. And so this is the first time that I met Iris Berry, and I was like feeling good. And I read from the Death Jazz, which was the book that our mutual friend Ellen Mabey sort of encouraged me to publish. And so I was just actually I was just thinking of that. That's all to that segue about sort of like a surreal experience that feels, I mean, watching a David Lynch film frequently, it feels like you're on mushrooms or something, peyote or whatever.
Well, you're talking about cookies. You know what David Lynch would have said about that? He would have said, there are ideas in that food. He used to say that about the menu at Bob's Big Boy. He was very dedicated to
I
Bob's Big
know
Boy.
he was into that, and I actually wrote one of the stories. I'm gonna. It's a very very short story that I'm gonna read later from the Doom Hippies. Is actually a reference. I referenced David's proclivity towards Bob's Big Boy in the story. So it's called Morning Becomes Bizarro. So without further ado, let's see. Well, oh, okay,
I was going to
you
read a
already
poem or something.
you
Yeah.
are gonna read a poem or something. I'm sorry, I'm on the
No,
struggle bus
it's okay.
with brain trauma.
I was going to read shorter pieces from 30 years ago, not
Yeah,
because they were 30 years ago, but because um, I believed strongly that the Dadaists, and who later inspired the beats,
the
music for
beast,
men,
right?
um, they enjoyed working with cut up forms of images of women. The male gaze wasn't just about looking at an odalisque. The male gaze was looking at women in pieces. Um,
Yeah.
and I wrote about that extensively in my very first chapbook, A Resilient Heart. And I later, a couple years later, came across a book that was an art project by two art history students who took apart a lot of the images by Dali, Picasso,
Right.
Man Ray, and used
Sure.
them to show the placement of the Black Dahlia's corpse.
Yes. Yes. And there was another book that was a true crime book, and maybe Lynn can speak to this, that where the person claimed that their father was the Black Dahlia killer,
I
and they
knew
Steve
were
about
Hodel.
that book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Steve Hodel. I know him.
Steve
We're
Hodel. Okay,
friends on
yeah.
Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
He says that of his father, George Hodel, who was
Yes.
friends with Man Ray and John
Yes.
Huston and collected a lot of the Dadaist artwork.
Hmm.
And I had a poem where I referred to my genitalia as ready-mades, things
Yeah.
that they were going to cut away from me and take away from me.
Oh, wow.
And to me, that also feeds into the chaotic energy of Kali in a way,
Yes.
the urge toward destruction. So instead, I've got these longer poems that don't really handle ready-mades, but they are about, there is art in them. And in the
Hmm.
second poem, there is the female body as art in a most morbid fashion. So this first one is titled "I Wish He Had Killed Me." There is no figurative language for this sort of thing, only the truth, bare bones. Cruel, bare bones. It is no longer the fear or the grief that speaks, merely exhaustion. It snatches away the moment, snuffs out the eastern horizon, makes a smudge of the sun. Reason can't put a dent in it. Comprehension doesn't quite put a finger on it. Someone embraced the irrational, and the rest is all a shipwreck. Timber snapped on the rocks, oil glowing scarlet and phosphorescent froth on the waves as the sun vanishes, salt pouring into my mouth and out my eyes, leaching from the bone's sweet spots. Somewhere in my heart, a small drawer closes so the letters won't get wet. The jetsam of rope, cork, old-fashioned buoys of glass, the verdigris of the tide, the ambergris of sweeter times. Nothing but a whale's cough before the annual song is changed. I am no longer among the sea's warm-blooded creatures. I am seaweed. I am sea glass. I am an open gash from the Adam's apple to the pudendum, but I will not die. He was too cowardly to finish the task, didn't watch what he was doing, botched the job horribly. I don't know what he sought to accomplish, blade in hand, as he opened my chest to the lampreys and their sparking cousins. I don't think it mattered. It was an errand, a honeydew, not really his idea. Perhaps he imagined me a ship's body destined for the floor of the sea, the heart's cage delivered to jumpstart a reef. Perhaps he envisioned a colony of Pisaster holding my ribs together for the ages. She'll do just fine in the long run. The thing is, he didn't extinguish me, and this is the keenest of the cruelties. If he had truly loved me, truly, as the papers in the small drawer attest, he would have foregone the blade, taken my throat in his bare hands, done an honest job of it. He called himself a limited person. Perhaps he was, but I saw better. I knew better. What God there was in me saw the God there was in him, and it was beautiful, and it was true, and for a time it had loved me. It had been the only true glimpse of God I ever had. But these are godless times, and this is a cold, godless sea. Had he loved me a small measure more, not enough to stay, and not enough to stay his hand, he could have crushed my throat with those beautiful hands, caved in my last breath, left his name the last word on my lips, but he didn't. So I lived, and I lived, and I lived, and still I live, the strongest swimmer imaginable. That is the worst of all. For 27 years, there has been no shore in sight, and I am the strongest swimmer imaginable. Now, at the very end of this poem is a quote I found from my friend Jeff Kober, who is an actor.
Yes.
And Jeff said, embrace a worldview that says, if I am alive, I am meant to be here.
Wow. Couple of thoughts, and they don't nearly do justice, but in terms of, I forget the term, but it's when you use with sort of intertextual references to other literary works. And I'm thinking particularly of Rimbaud. I'm thinking particularly of Le Bateau Ivre, and I'm also thinking of Shakespeare, right? Those are um, what his bones of his bones were coral made, something like from the Tempest. And but
Tempest is exactly it.
yes, seen through that lens of the sort of the the theme, I'm thinking of like Julia Kristeva, you know, a sort of like the semiotic chora, right? Where you have the sort of the Polgians or what there or Ellen Sixu, right? Of the interior. I mean, her essay, The Laugh of the Medusa, um, which is very, very important for me, as is, Judith Butler and Beatrice Spivak and Jacques Derrida. But just that sense of the profound boundaryless state, where because of the way that women are constituted, I mean, guys have this sort of like we're almost sort of like, and I think of Marcel Duchamp, the bride stripped bare bachelors by her bachelors, and I have a poem in The Flowers of Doom where I take it to the next level, where the bride stripped bare by her bachelors, even Stephen. And but it's a truly remarkable work that you've accomplished there. And very, very rarely does I do a lot of, oh, I don't do any open mics anymore because it's with the disability, it's real hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the but I really this was why I started this podcast, which was Ellen Mabey's idea, because I like to have, I think poetry should breathe and cry or exult or laugh or sing a song or do the Snoopy dance or whatever, to feel what it feels, as opposed to like we're going to sit here and we're going to go like that, right? And we're going to be on assembly line we have 30 poets and everybody reads one thing of scar. Okay, let's get to the next person. Okay, so I think one definition of intelligence, which I value, is the ability to update your feed in real time, and I try to act intelligently if I'm not always intelligent, if that makes any sense. So
Mm-hmm.
bravo, bravo, bravo.
You're
You
very
know,
kind.
uh,
Thank you.
Janis Joplin moves me to tears. Jarbo moves me to tears. Your poem moved me to tears. That's not easy.
Yeah, I used to note that when I read my poems in coffee houses, oftentimes these men I'd never met before would come up to me afterwards going, I feel so terrible. Can I take you across the street and buy you a drink and just make it better for you? And I'm like, I don't drink. I,
That's fucking awesome.
they're so sweet. It's like, I just want to make it up to you for what that guy did. And it's like, no, you don't have to.
You don't
It's
have to.
okay. Your sweetness here in the presence is more than balm enough.
Your sweetness here in the presence is more than balm enough. That's like fucking Dorothy Parker. You should write that
You
down.
know, but if I can just say something in here, it's Amelie's time.
Please
I did want to interject something.
interject.
Um, I sometimes feel like maybe my work isn't seen as profound because it's humorous sometimes and it's more optimistic. I can't help it. I can't be one of the really dark people. Some of the crime fiction I've been writing lately, I've been getting into my dark side there and killing off people in fiction that I would like to kill off in real life and can't.
Harlan Ellison used to do
System
that.
in the story.
Yeah.
But I'm not much of a dark side person. I have to write stuff that's uplifting. And I get the feeling sometimes that maybe that doesn't count as much in the literary scene because people think, well, I'm a lightweight there. I don't know.
No, disagree with you on that assessment or perception. I don't think anybody regards you as a lightweight. I mean, that first poem of yours that I heard, where you talked about in the end about women fashioning keys for their cages, and that was like you throwing a lifeline out to the reader.
Mm.
And that is one of the things I have enjoyed most about your poetry. I don't think people understand our relationship. Do you think they understand our relationship, mine and Lynn's?
Well, I don't know what some people might think because we go together to the vet with our cats.
With our
So
cats, yes.
they probably think that we're a couple, we're two women in a relationship with cats.
Oh no, that they don't know that I'm just down the hall from you in the same house, that we're roommates and we're just a few feet apart from each other. And I was in there about an hour ago tormenting that orange cat.
You can see in
Right
in
there.
the left-hand corner, you might see something orange over there.
Toffee.
Yeah, that's Toffee, who's the oldest of the three cats. Amelie's new cat, Eartha, is 6 months old and half his size, and she chases him. It looks like an animated cartoon with this
Oh, I love that.
terror from her. He is so simple.
They did like a 2-hour survey
Simple.
on Eartha. It would say favorite activity, chasing my tail, running in circles in an empty bathtub. That's what she does best.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a performance art piece.
It does. It
You,
looks like it too.
okay, speaking of performance art. Okay, so this is the connection that I'll try to weave together. Um, um, I'll try to I'll try to make it really, really clear. Okay, you know my dad, right? Stephen M. Johnson, right?
Yes.
Okay, so and you know that one of his fans is Bjork,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Right.
Yep.
And how we know this is that there's a guy whose his name is Michael Portnoy, and he is a conceptual artist who is best known for his performance art piece called Soy Bomb. Now, if you
Oh
Google,
yeah, I
so
remember that.
you know who he knew who Michael Portnoy is, right? Okay, so he's the guy who very for the people who don't know this it's amazing. I told Michael that I thought it was like basically like the L-A un o un o LHOOQ. She has a hot ass
Hmm.
Mona Lisa with a mustache, right? Of the 20th century, I mean, well, that was in the 20th century, but of our time, it's the or it's the fountain, right? The our moot, urinal by Marcel Duchamp. And he said, yeah, but Bob didn't agree. Bob Dylan didn't agree because as for those of you who don't know, this piece where he was a backup dancer for the Grammy Awards, and Bob Dylan was a performer, and all of a sudden, midway through this song that Dylan was singing, he takes his shirt off and he exposes on his chest the words
Way bomb.
"soy bomb" were written, and it's pure nonsense. It was a pure Dada act in the absolute.
Unless it's Spanish for I am a bomb.
Soy bomb, right?
Soy
Soy
bomb.
soy bomb, soy bomb. And it's very flamboyant, whether it's Catalan Spanish or with a little flamenco, soy bomb, or that kind of thing. And so anyway, so he was the recipient of this book, was the first book that my dad, Stephen M. Johnson, published. I believe it was St. Martin's Press, and it was called What the World Needs Now. And it was a wedding gift that was given to a friend of Bjork's, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she and I
Something
still
daughter.
something daughter, right? And I've been trying to get in contact with, I mean, she's one of the most important people in the world. Good luck getting that accomplished, Alex. But I have my ways, and you know, then so I don't know the circumstances, but she came across this book, What the World Needs Now, which is available on Amazon, and my dad republished it. And she was like, holy shit, this is really interesting because and I've dubbed this whatever we're doing what Ellen and I are doing, my dad is doing, you are doing, Lynne is doing, and all our many of our contributors. I feel that we are what my dad coined the term whimsicalism. That there's whimsicalists, even though despite the fact that my dad's stuff has very, very, very dark, overtones. In fact, the cartoons that he did for the Yale Alumni magazine were so morbid and so dark, that they anyway, he had them like lying in their coffins. There's sort of like a portable coffin going around to greeting the other alumni, Yale alumni. So yeah, it's extremely dark. Didn't mean to get off track. But I was just thinking, I mean, I think a lot about Dada, especially since I was a contributor to the Cut Up anthology that came out right with Mark Olmsted and Joe Ambrose and A.D. Hitchens put that together, right, in 2013, 2014. And A.D. Hitchens wrote the foreword to my chapbook, which is very, very cut up, very, very Dada chapbook called Akashic Shotgun, and which was the title was a sort of a play on like Sunset Gun with Dorothy Parker. That's all I wanted to say about that.
You know what I have in common with William Burroughs?
What's that?
Aside from, I think he's an Aquarius, just like I am.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, I have a pistol.
Ah, nice. Wow. Yeah. What kind?
Ruger 357 Magnum, a Security 6.
Wow. That's that's impressive, and I know nothing about guns except the only encounter that I've had with an actual gun was the time that I spent the night at the safe house of a professional hitman in Beverly Hills.
Oh, good Lord.
Yes, that was my friend who worked with Marilyn Manson and Lemmy and like was going out.
That sounds like a crowd right there where you would somewhere a revolver would turn up.
I love that. Very, very witty of you. Yeah. So we were at the Rainbow. I spent a lot of time at the Rainbow Bar and Grill because my friend worked with Lemmy, who was a close friend of your Billy Bob Thornton guy, right?
Yes,
And
that's right. They were good friends.
and Billy Bob is in the Lemmy movie, right? And
Yes, he
so
is.
we were at the we would go to the Rainbow, and because she was white, they considered her like royalty, my friend, and so they would basically indulge her whatever. We got to stay one time. We were staying after hours, even if they kicked out Prince because Prince came in with some of his coterie or whatever, and they were causing some disturbances. And so, the Rainbow management doesn't take any shit. They were like, 86 is your
Oh,
number, Prince,
I
right?
did his tour support. He could be very challenging, and good Lord knows we miss him. We miss
Yes,
him
we do.
terribly.
We do.
But one night he made a concert over an hour late. You know why?
Why?
Because he wanted to play ping pong. So
Ping
he's
pong.
had them set up a ping pong table. He just played ping pong while the audience was waiting for over an hour.
Damn. Isn't Madonna doing shit like that now? Or
I'm not sure.
yeah,
I'm not sure. I find personally I find tardiness unprofessional.
me too. Yeah,
Um, they may be artistic, they may be gifted, but professionalism is important.
I agree
It's
100%.
as important as practicing your instrument every day. And Lord knows Prince could play multiple instruments. That's a
Yeah.
lot of practicing.
Yes, yes, very, very, very much so. But I didn't want to waylay myself or you, so maybe read some more stuff.
Okay, we have another poem. Where are my glasses? Where did I put my glasses? Oh my God, they're not on my head. Gee, I'm not in the middle of menopause or anything. Lynn, did you see where I put my glasses?
Well,
Oh,
I could bring mine into you if you. Oh, there they are.
hold on. They need a little cleaning here. Um, yeah, Lynn and I live together, basically two senior citizens with two other senior citizens
And three cats.
And three cats.
and three cats, one of whom is doing absolutely nothing off to Lynn's right there in the screen. You can see him, sort of the black and the blue and then the orange. That orange is the cat. He's useless. We love him.
Did,
Um,
didn't I sort of write a spontaneous orange cat
you
poem when we were
did.
like
You
on chat, on
did.
Messenger? Yeah.
The night we met and
Yes, the
talked
night we met.
online for a couple of hours.
Yes.
Yeah, it was an extended play version of that cat's life. Um, so let's see here. Now, I want to explain one thing about this. I read this recently at a series called Backstory, where they take a book or a movie or a play, and you have to know about it. And then you write a backstory for a character for yourself
Mhm.
based on it. And I read this at a production of Backstory that the topic was the Silence of the Lambs. Now, Dr. Lecter, who is, I think, Kali in male form because he is incredibly chaotic.
Yep.
Um, he um, he hides out in a museum in the book and the movie Hannibal. Um, and they're in Florence, and there is another museum that does not appear in the story in Florence, but it's called the Museum La Specola. And the Museum La Specola is full of ready-mades. It is a
Nice.
wax museum, pieces from the 18th century, wax replicas of male and female, but mostly female bodies, because of course they can do all the ornamentation with the hair, just like the Japanese do.
Yeah.
And still you'll have this woman who has been, she's got a Y incision, she's opened up, her intestines have been pulled out, and you can see her spleen, you can see her lungs, and it's for anatomy lessons.
Yeah.
And these are anatomical studies that these wax sculptors did. I want very much to visit this museum should I ever make it to Florence, or
Yeah.
excuse me, Lynn, Florence. Um, anyway, so this is a sequel to the previous poem, I Wish He Had Killed Me, and this is called um, How You Came to Be Like My Skin. And this is actually a resurrection poem, but there is violence in it. I have mentioned a rough creature from Pennsylvania. I will not talk about her much because it is unnerving how much she is like me, yet unlike me. She is part of the backstory that goes with the meadow, the ravenous eagle, the rock, a 25-year voyage that began with a shipwreck and drifted into fitful slumber. It is a terrible story. I love monster movies because monsters are as familiar to me as holidays, yet no monster I have ever seen was as pernicious as she, my personal monster of Florence, who turned innocent maidens into exquisite husks for display in Museum La Spicola. This she could do from 3,000 miles away, and her mark would never see it coming. I didn't. Remind me to show you the maiden in wax sometime, but not until after you've eaten. Of late, since the temperature hit 112 in my neck of the woods, I have felt a heat trapped in my tissues, radiating from my limbs, not like a fever, but like an engine, efficient and gradual, diffusing an energy unlike any one experiences in childhood or young adulthood. I would say this is the energy of survival, what is thrown off after the engine has run unceasing for 25 years. Of course, it would liquefy the virginal husk, evaporating her beauty, her simplicity, but not her heart. And here is where you came into play. The first time you embraced me, the first time you caressed my skin, addressed my arms, my shoulders, asking permission. May I touch you here? May I press against you here? May I anoint you here? You left tactile memory across every cell of my body, bringing blush and shiver to my complexion, igniting what an entire ocean had extinguished. That was you. And each time that it was you, I transubstantiated from beeswax and abandoned into something and someone who breathed and gasped anew. Now, here is the surprise. She appeared in the meadow, the rough thing from Pennsylvania. She approached, thinking I would be caught supine and unawares in the tall grasses and late goldenrod. Imagine her surprise when I rose to my feet, gripped her by the jaw, drew her to within 6 inches of my face, and told her, "On ne passeront pas, chienne." I was real, and I was loved, and I had skin that was electric with you. I had your fingerprints on my breasts, your semen on my belly, your voice in my ear telling me, I contain all of you. She is jealousy and fear and dust. Cast her out of the meadow, and then let's have a picnic. And I
Oh,
did. And then we did.
oh, oh, oh my gosh. I just want to sit with that one. I want to sit with that one. I want to sit with that one. I mean, it's like with you don't just slurp a wine, right?
I try not to be slurped when possible.
You know, you sit with it or sherry, right? You're just like, okay, you let it breathe, right? And then you have the appropriate glass and you have, and it's just see this is why and I'm so grateful to Ellen for so many things, but one of them is just suggesting that I do this podcast because for precisely this reason, because I'm a very emotional person and I'm a very visceral person, and my response to poetry is like lovemaking or emotional violence or trauma. It is and my body is my vessel for whatever comes out of my fingers is sort of a transmutation of the electrical impulses of like the the universal currents, I'm saying, like with like what Whitman talked about, and those and Emerson certainly, that those currents when he talks about it, it's like sort of I think was it self-reliance, right? Um, of the currents of the divine, that are interchanging. And in Song of Myself, when he talks about, I contain multitudes, that
Yes.
we are containing you and I and Lynne and David Haskins and Graham Masterton and Poppy Bright and all these, we are containing multitudes. This is why I started Nocturnicorn Books. We've got the unicorn in the sky, in this, so the possibilities are limitless, right? It's not just, and maybe you could see that it could be a marine sky like the drunken boat, right? That sort of beautiful inverted imagery where everything is flotsam and jetsam and chaos, and you've got the corpses descending of the sailors, right? Descending, the drowning sailors, and he's bobbing like a cork, impossible Floridas, right? Impossible Floridas. I mean, Rambo, right? Can we talk about
Oh,
Rambo?
Poe, the descent into the maelstrom.
The descent into the, which is fucking weird.
It's a lesson in physics,
Yes,
actually.
yeah, yeah.
Leave
Yeah.
it to Poe to throw algebra into an otherwise pleasurable read.
Well, I later in this year, if I survive, I'm going to do a Poe book,
Oh,
and it's called Songs of Midnight.
I have to include, throw in my friend Laurel's poem about Edgar Allan Poe if he had been on drugs.
If he had been on
If
drugs,
he
yeah.
had
Of course, we know.
recite Annabelle Lee, but he can't because he's on these different substances,
Well,
and it just goes all wrong.
I would love to see something that was sort of a mashup of Edgar Allan Poe and Hunter S. Thompson. I would read that, right?
Could you imagine that road trip?
We were so
Oh my God.
what was the house, what was the city by the sea? Um,
The Kingdom by the Sea?
the Kingdom by the Sea. Yeah.
I am completely blanking. Sorry, don't ask me.
Oh, there was the
I
other.
don't know that there was one,
Uh-huh.
but Vladimir Nabokov took that
Thank you.
Lolita
Vladimir Nabokov. Yes.
because there it was on the Riviera that Humbert, when he was about 13, met a
Yeah.
girl named Annabelle Lee who
Yes.
died. And that's why he became obsessed with, I've got to have that girl for the rest of my life. The only
Right.
thing I'm ever going to love is
Is
Annabelle Lee,
and then he sees her in
Lolita.
Dolores Haze, and yeah, and then yeah, basically,
Would you like to hear what AI says about the Kingdom by the Sea?
oh, by all means necessary. Yeah.
The phrase "in a kingdom by the sea" is repeated to emphasize the setting, creating a sense of unity and timelessness around the
Mm.
love story between the narrator and Annabelle Lee, essentially highlighting the mystical and almost dreamlike quality of their love and the enduring nature of his grief, even after her death. The repetition also contributes to the poem's haunting and obsessive tone.
This
You know,
stuff always sounds like Mad Libs wrote it.
Yeah.
It's fill in the adjectives. Everything from AI, a lot of stuff is appearing on Facebook now, like little essays about books, and everything in it is a bunch of adjectives that they pulled out like out of Mad Libs or something. You can just tell it doesn't sound like an individual wrote it. It doesn't have the uniqueness of the way an individual might describe what's going on.
exactly.
Just these adjectives out like Mad Libs, adjective, just stick enduring, awesome, iconic.
Imagine the Mad Libs that Poe could have created and sepulchered.
And sepulchred. Oh, is that the word du jour?
Why not?
I'm gonna read something. I'm sorry. Would you have anything else?
No, I'm all tapped out
Wow.
aside from my Hungarian haiku, and that is also behind a 15-pound box that I can't
I
reach.
hate when that happens.
I hate when that happens.
So
And Lynne will verify there are boxes that heavy in front of my books.
do you know somebody named Tantra Bensko, Rosemary Tantra Bensko? Ever heard of her? She's this poet and educator. She works for the UC, is it UC, not UC Berkeley Extension, but well, we have a lot of overlap. She published my second chapbook, which earned me rave reviews from Marie Lecrevin, our mutual friend, and who said I was scarily brilliant. And
Marie
Chris,
is correct.
well,
Marie's always right.
yes, she is always right. And then Chris Kelso, who co-founded Imperial Youth Review with Garrett Cook, and it's basically one of the more important sites of like primary sources of the Bizarro movement. And Chris Kelso, who is also a contributor to the Burroughs book, because he he's a very important author. He said he gave me the same quote that Norman Mailer gave of Burroughs. He said, as a writer possessed by genius,
Hmm.
and as well as this has really moved me beyond words. I was reaching out to I wanted to be published. I'll show you. This is a little bit of show and tell. There's a publisher um, called Subterranean Press, and they're very much of a specialty.
Yeah, we're well acquainted with them.
Right. So they did this one. So
Hmm.
this is an alternative. This is the alternative. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is the alternative Beatles, if the Beatles were gay, basically, and it's this pre-transition Poppy Z Bright, very beautiful Poppy Z Bright, with her cat, and who's still Billy Martin now. And we have with us, um, how do I put this? One of the most important thinkers of our time, and I mean that deeply. Greg Tomaini, Gr. Tomaini is the creator of the first American philosophical system. He is a theologian. He is a philosopher whose work is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but his thesis, um, his philosophical thesis, has a foreword by Dr. Cornel West. He
Oh,
is his book of poetry called The Flowers of Malaise, and he's published I don't know how many books, um, was blurbed favorably by another little show and tell here, for maximum impact. Um, this person.
wow.
Okay. So that's Greg Tomaini. And he's a very um, delightful person. He knows one of I don't know if I should mention it, he knows one of the village people. So,
Well, right there, that should put him on the map forever.
yeah, yes,
Hi, Greg. He's muted
he's muted.
or
Can,
something. I
can
can't
you,
hear
Let me
him.
see.
oh,
There we go. There we go.
there you are.
Can you
Okay.
hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Sorry, I had my headphones in. The headphones always do damage or something.
There you are, man. How are
Yeah.
you? How are you,
Good.
my
How are
friend?
you?
Great. We're great. So he is writing the introduction to the Kali book, and we have Poppy Z. Bright, Billy Martin, generously gave me permission to reprint his classic story, Calcutta Lord of Nerves, which was originally published in again a little bit of, because I have the a copy of, yes. Also, I have my small bear here.
Oh, that's the small bear.
That's the small bear, and there's a whole story that involves John Cordy, the director of an Ewok adventure and a Star Wars, movie, which who actually gave me a stuffed teddy bear when I was born on Halloween, 1966. And he was also the Academy Award winning director of Who Are the Devolts?
That was the night that they premiered the Charlie Brown. It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown.
And and
66.
I share the exact same birthday, the day and the year with Nelson Gary.
That's right.
Well, that's right. So this is Swamp Fetus. I don't know who did okay, the front cover was Rick Leader, and this was published by was it Subterranean Press or Gauntlet Press? It was a Borderlands Press. Borderland Thomas F. Monteleone, he was a terrible person. He's a terrible human being. But he put this one out, and I first met actually Poppy Z. Bright, Billy Martin, in New Orleans World Fantasy Convention in 1995, where I also met Ramsey Campbell for the first time.
Oh my goodness, Ramsey Campbell, really?
Yeah, well, I'm in a magazine with him. Yeah, and I've published him too. I mean, I he gave me a reprint, but from his clown horror book. Yeah. And so what was I saying about so yeah, so Poppy Z. Brite wrote that amazing story, Calcutta Lord of Nerves, which is one of the greatest examples of like well, there's a whole subgenre of horror. It's basically Kali horror, and there's Indian horror. So, Song of Kali by Dan Simmons was another person that,
Oh, he is a great writer, Dan
yeah,
Simmons.
yes, and as a matter of fact, it was Dan Simmons who wrote I believe he wrote the introduction to this book, and uh, Poppy Billy was championed by Harlan Ellison. So. Big talent gives off thermonuclear vibes. I can feel them. The last time I said it, I was talking about Dan Simmons. Now I'm saying it about Poppy Z. Brite. This is the voice we're going to be hearing for a long time, Harlan Ellison. And so this was the book when I was subscribed to, I had a subscription to Cemetery Dance magazine that my parents, gave me the subscription. And I saw this ad for this cover, right? The Swamp Fetus cover by Rick Leader. And I was like, who, as in the words of Stephen King, who said, I don't know who or what a Poppy Z. Brite may be, but they write some weird shit. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So it turns out that Poppy Billy is a contemporary of mine, and we both share a number of obsessions. Hunter S. Thompson, William S. Burroughs, Bauhaus, and or Crumb. So we're all like, yeah, and
People with initials, basically.
yeah, kind of. And so, and then who else do we have? Well, we have Greg Tomaini. So Greg, um, so you're formulating, and Greg is also in as has a piece in the Burroughs book. So, could you kind of introduce yourself to the peoples, Greg, and so who you are and what you're doing here, and so he very kindly came on board our program at the last possible second. He was sharing some invitation to a Zoom meeting by a former senator. I don't know if it was a state senator or
A New Jersey governor.
the New Jersey governor. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Chris Christie.
No, no, Jim McGreevy.
Oh God, because Chris Christie had that bottomless bowl of pasta.
It's I just think it's complicated what's happened to so many people who have come out to support certain individuals and then their whole I mean, I'm blue and he left office a very popular governor, Christie,
Uh-huh.
and then you know what and then now, I mean, it's just tragic in a way. And like I said, I'm blue. But anyway, um so I have my Shiva tapestry on the wall. Uh, people see that it's on my window, so people drive by, they see Shiva in the window. But anyway, that's how I first got started with Alex S. Johnson, and I'll be writing an introduction for the book on Kali, Mahakali. Just from my time as I'm trained as a theologian and philosopher, and I really do love. There's so many intricacies to Hinduism. A little bit more about me. I also work as a international liaison officer for the Rohingya people. There's about a million.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I'm not familiar. Could you
Sure, sure.
fill me in? Yeah.
There's about a
Rohingya
million
Buddhists.
or so refugees who fled Myanmar. And
Okay.
the first thing I say to introduce people to the situation, Myanmar is a country with 183 million people living there.
Yeah.
It's half the size of the United States.
Our next door neighbor is from there.
Really, yeah.
I haven't asked him if he's
It's a very
Rohingya, but he is a Buddhist.
oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a very difficult time for the Rohingya people.
No, they're
Lots of things
persecuted.
accelerated in 2017. And some people will refer to it as as a genocide and so on and so forth. But regardless, 1 million refugees live now in Bangladesh, Rohingya refugees. And so I've been advocating for them to various congressmen, state senators, federal senators, um, probably writing to some foreign governments soon to see if I can secure some humanitarian aid relief for them. Uh, Nothing like in a situation like this, it doesn't necessarily call for maybe some funding for staffers, but a lot of foreign governments look down upon you. Let's just give them money. I'm advocating for foodstuffs, provisions, maybe even a team of architects to build up the infrastructure of the camp, make sure they have access to clean drinking water, so on and so forth. But that's about me. It's lovely to meet everybody. And I'm an author too. I write philosophy and poetry. I've written, I have 3 philosophy books I've written, but 2 of them are published. And of the 2 published, both of them have the endorsements of Cornel West and Slavoj Žižek, 2 big figures in philosophical circles, anyway. And it's funny, both of them ran for president of the respective countries.
Big figures in general. I mean, like I think, but Cornel West is one of the most important public intellectuals of our time, and he and
Very important.
Noam Chomsky, right? And I'm trying to think of who else is big. I mean, I think Spivak certainly, right? Is extremely important. Yeah.
Well,
Judith
and
And then I have
Butler
Spivak's endorsement as well.
while
Yeah.
he might be a journalist, Chris Hedges is one of the most important intellectuals alive as well.
And he's also good friends with Cornel West. That's right. Chris Hedges,
That makes
absolutely.
complete sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very fortunate at Union Theological Seminary in Manhattan. It's a big hub and graduate school for activists, all kinds of stuff like that. It's a big left hub. But I just got to be introduced to so many figures and activists, and just really inspired, molded my own trajectory. And then, of course, I write poetry, and then it's funny. Even my mother said to me, and this is about 6 months before she passed away. She goes, "Greg, after the publication of my Psalms of Babylon, 112 Flowers in the Blaze, which Professor Spivak so graciously reviewed, and that book earned me the title of American Goethe." It's like,
I wouldn't
that
mind
would help it.
being American.
A lot of people don't even know who Goethe is.
I do.
Yeah.
I quote Goethe. I quote Goethe whenever I perform a wedding ceremony.
You do? Oh,
I do.
love that. I love Goethe. I love the Stars of Young Werther. I just did a painting about
Me
that.
too. Me too, man. That's so, and I think it's funny as hell. I think there's a sort of a satirical level to it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. There's deep. I think I'm gonna have to explain some of this stuff. Eventually. So what's going on in these books? It's just irony and satiricality and all that.
Yeah, like Mendipian satire is something that I'm really interested in, because there's a guy who was part of you ever heard of the Church of the Subgenius? I mean, that was Poppy was really, really into that. That's why he would sign his books Love and Slack, right? Because that's a subgenius thing. And this is sort of a pseudo religion, a cult that was started in Austin, Texas, I believe, by some acid heads. And so it was a guy,
Of course.
and so it's a parody, like religious sect, right? They even had a parody schism, and so they had the true Bob. Actually, they took this sort of photos of this guy who was on the cover of this the Pacific Bell telephone directory from 1945 as a sort of this guy with the guy with the pipe. You recognize him, the guy with the pipe, right? And they just sort of arbitrarily, in a very Marcel Duchamp way, they randomly allocated this picture to Bob. And so they created this pseudo religion called the Church of the Subgenius, centered around Bob, who's an imaginary character who never lived. It's basically this photo of this guy. I mean, talk about Burroughs, right? Talk about a cut up. This is like a
Yeah, yeah.
reality hack, right? And so there was an actual person who called himself Bob Dobbs. And, it was not obviously not his name, but he was active in Pasadena circles. And he was a good friend of a friend of mine. Um, and eventually I'm going to have to talk about Jordan Gallagher. But this was, and I'll just give you a sort of a holding place, Kate Braverman. All right. So Kate Braverman, Jordan Gallagher, Pasadena, the E-Bar.
Yeah,
Um,
Kate is an important figure in
yes,
1980s Los Angeles literature, 80s,
sure,
90s.
certainly. Jordan Gallagher is my dear friend. She died of a fentanyl overdose in 2020. She co-edited my book, Anthem, a tribute to Leonard Cohen. And she taught a, a course, she created a course at Cal State LA, in a summer writing class with, Kate Braverman. She also taught at Yale, Divinity School, and she was a very important poet. Unfortunately, she was also kind of a flake because she was a junkie. And so I knew that, first of all, she didn't have long to live. Something was going to take her out, most probably junk. And I hate to be right. I hate to be fucking right sometimes. But she she had poetry in like the Paris Review, and but I knew that she had one book that's called Revolt on Venus because of her. She would always tell me, that Alex, I've lived an Anais Nin life. Okay, so she was queer, she was bisexual, and I knew that she didn't have long to live. So the last time I talked with her by phone, she used to call me every week, about these long rambling conversations about, mostly around, talking about Thomas Wolfe. And talked a lot about the Holocaust. We talked a lot about, because she is Jewish, and, Sherry Lynn Weiner is her real name. She took the name Jordan, from the character in, um, I don't know why I was thinking It's a Wonderful Life, but it's a tragic life. It's a beautiful book called, The Great Gatsby, right? By, F. Scott Fitzgerald. And the tennis player that Nick Carraway sort of not really falls in love with, right? I knew when I kissed her that my mind would no longer romp like I would no longer romp like the mind of God. I'm badly paraphrasing it, right? Um, you know, um, and so her book, Revolt on Venus, is out of print, and we can't find it. Maybe, Amelie, you would have some resources that you'd help us track it down, because I and my dear friend Michelle Fairchild, who, has all of her hard drives and all of her clothes and all of her books, and she was writing she wrote a lot in book physically in books, a lot of poems, a lot of short story ideas, and one of them was a short story that she dedicated to me. And if you don't mind, actually, because I just like to flow with whatever, um, I'm gonna read a poem that I wrote, um, for her when she was still around, and it's called the Black Death and Other Colors. And I'm just going to explain. There's a line here where I talk about tiddlywinks, the game of tiddlywinks.
I
Now,
remember that game.
my
Hmm.
ex-father-in-law, who is how I know how the reason that I moved from Sacramento to LA and lived on Mount Washington for about a year and a half, and then Pasadena, then eventually Torrance, is that so my ex-wife's father was ran a boutique ad agency on first on Wilshire Boulevard. He was one of the original madmen, right? He came over from New York to Wilshire Boulevard. He had established this called Haller Schwartz. They had the Warner Brothers account, so they did all the advertising for Batman with Michael Keaton, right? Um, and he moved his ad agency from Wilshire Boulevard to Eagle Rock to save money. So there's a kind of guy he was. He was a drunk. And he was extremely abusive to me, especially with my learning disabilities, with that I share with Ellen, maybe dyscalculia. So he made fun of my learning disabilities. And he always made fun of the fact that I only went to UC Davis. I didn't go to Harvard where he went to Harvard, and especially, and I said, oh, I worked at our local, I'm back in Carmichael now, it's a suburb of Sacramento. And I said, oh, I used to be I was a shelver at our local Carmichael library, right? And he said, oh, well, I worked at the Widener Library at Harvard. And I felt a really sense of like, when people kill your heart.
No, I'm on a Zoom call right now.
Okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, well, people sometimes will kill your heart. And so he did that to me. And another time I was making it just a casual joke about the film critic Joel Siegel.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I was saying, there was like all sorts of comedians, Johnny Carson, whatever, would make jokes about Joel Siegel because the thing about him is like he never met a movie he didn't like. And so I was saying, I had no idea that this was going to evoke this kind of impassioned outrage, really, from him after he'd had some sherry, right? And so I said, oh, Joel, we're talking about some movie that had just come out. I said, well, that was a terrible film. And I said, well, who's going to like it? Joel Siegel. And he started screaming at me. He said, well, you shouldn't never talk anything bad about, Joel Siegel because I was on the Tiddlywinks team with him at Harvard. Blah, 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 blah. And he took every opportunity to remind me that I didn't go to Harvard. And that's how I met his daughter because we were both comp lit students at UC Davis. And I met her in 1987. We were mentored. Well, I was mentored. We both took a class in Dada and Surrealism by Dr. Ruby Cohn, who was the first scholar of Samuel Beckett and was a close friend of Samuel Beckett. And she would go back and forth to Paris every year to hang out with him, right? And she encouraged my writing. She said, I should be writing plays. Okay. And so that's how we met, my wife, and that's how I know all these people. And it's ultimately my odyssey through Southern California and then back here. And so I had all these balls in the air. So help me out. What's the main point?
Is that Joel Siegel is a terrible reviewer.
Is that Joel Siegel's a terrible reviewer. And so he, Hank Schwartz started to say, well, I knew I was on the Tiddlywinks team with him at Harvard. And it's like, more recently, I've sort of, because Hank has passed, whatever, and I did some more research into this because I think, how things sort of become traumatic, like needles in your skin, of the skin of your soul.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you sort of like, okay, so I had to extract that one. I looked it up. He didn't go to Harvard. That was another Joel Siegel.
How about that?
He went to USC. And so all this time, right? All this time I've been thinking I'm fucking stupid. I'm an idiot because I have a learning disability. I have trouble tracking quantitative information. I have trouble with math. I have trouble with I can't drive because I can't conceptualize the distance between me and other drivers. And, and anyway, it is what it is, right? Neither could Octavia C. Butler couldn't drive either, and she went to Pasadena City College,
A
right?
huge number of the poets of Southern California do not drive. I should know because I drive them. Yeah, Lynne's one
Oh
who doesn't
wow.
drive.
I had no idea.
I've never driven, but I'm from New York City.
Right? Yes. So basically, this is all to go to say that last year um I got a message from a guy named Craig Thomas, there's another interesting connection, who's the brother of Scott Thomas and Jeffrey Thomas. Jeffrey Thomas is one of the most renowned horror authors and dark fantasy authors and science fiction authors of our time. Talk about the late, great, immortal David Lynch was a fan of his, as well as David Cronenberg was a fan of his.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there was talk about adaptation of Jeffrey Thomas created this wholly original dystopian um, universe called Punktown. And I highly recommend his German um, publisher. Yeah, so think of sort of like a collision, a Brundlefly between William S. Burroughs and H.P. Lovecraft and Caitlin R. Kiernan and Poppy Z. Bright, and then I don't know what. So his brother is the chief cataloger for the Widener Library at Harvard University. And so I shared a Facebook post that this transgender author named Polly Chattel had made, who was also a filmmaker, of Jeff's short story called After the Fall. And I just shared it, and Craig Thomas um, you know, messaged me and said, "Thank you for sharing." And I was like, I still can't believe that I'm actually friends with these people, right? I mean, at the level of intellect and sheer genius that they routinely display, and just so humble. Now, one thing led to another, and before I knew it, he was inviting me to donate two of my books to the Widener Library. So I get literally this book in which I have this poem that references my ex-father-in-law, who put me down because I didn't go to Harvard, and he was a shelver at the Widener. Now this book is in the Widener, you know. So I don't know what to say about that, except it's a level of karmic just poetry.
What are you
So,
going to read from it?
oh, I'm sorry. This is called The Black Death and Other Colors for Jordan Gallagher. Thank you. It wasn't some game they played. Aqueous tiddlywinks on the grue spackled sea. Some had forgotten their minds, gone sideways and bloodthirsty, reclaiming with tridents the source divine. Crippled with comfort, they sought anarchy. As they drifted, thoughts dressed in Puritan black, heroic strides to a future bent back.
Hmm.
My words grow absurd with the will to describe salons in gay Paris, Balzacian hive, and colors rippled opiate, camera, lucidic. These photos ate Blake. Meanwhile, clockwork figures retrieve ecstatic poetry
Mm.
plucked from her sleeve. The audience starts. You could hear a pin drop the unwritten diaries of Anais Nin. And oh yes, disease. Let me tell you a story. In Whitechapel, East End, a gentleman gory, perhaps syphilitic, his victims admitted. Those not slain were flattered and smitten, and followed the Ripper in steam-driven hearses, reciting their love for the man in cold verses. And so, because she was obsessed with the Puritans, she was obsessed with, well, a nice name, and all things Victoriana. She was so gothic. It's just a lovely, 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 chaotic, absurd, brilliant, devastatingly beautiful, and manipulative, and crazy, and also transcendentally alive, still alive, really, in our hearts. So anyway, that's Jordan, and I have
Thank you
another.
for sharing her with us.
Right. Well, you're very welcome, my dear friend. And this is another one. This is actually a poem, a prose poem that I wrote for my friend who in Canada, who's now completely disappeared. He also did a David Bowie tribute. He did 2 volumes of a David Bowie tribute, which was the title was his Bowie's, believe it was his birth date. And I almost think that Marie wrote something for it's out of print. But I wrote this several poems for Chris, about these are my David Bowie poems. So this is called let's see. Okay, this is one is called Bowie Poem. I'd love to talk. I'll meet you there somewhere cool and quiet out of the sun. While the kids rained chaos, bits from a shattered rose. We met the jester. Why wasn't it fun? Talking of money and making us stars. Everyone had motor cars delivered to their room at the Beverly, loaded with drugs. Wasn't it heavenly? Boys and girls made a new minted gender. What glisters ain't gold, it's sure not legal tender. Then moonlight screamed and smashed the bus. A bit of a scrape for us. So we made a mask of alien sex and signed all our contracts with blood and a hex, painting our dreams on your faces like canvas. While somewhere dim waking, the hammers struck anvils, and sparks flew like stardust, split sun pouring lies. But wasn't it fine? And we shrugged on our spacesuits, the better to travel. Arcturus, Montreux, the judge banged the gavel, and the hex papers drew all the gold to our hands. Ziggy sucked up the paper that split up the band. The Detroit papers said, boy, it's gone to his head. When personas were scrapped, the artist was dead, and Major Tom's ass got bit by a monkey who wasn't his boss, just some sort of flunky. Another occasion, for laughs and champagne, the money turned powder and clogged up the drain. The ex was still screaming her raucous reprise, which wasn't all lies. Which wasn't all lies, but all of the meat is pressed down in the platters. The grooves tell the story. It's music that matters. And goblins and gnomes are the ones who laugh last. Of feast there is plenty. Come join our repast. Lift a glass to the mimes, fools, and troubadours, like Ellen, maybe, while the main man locks bolts, there are still many doors. So that's, you know, that's my Bowie poem.
I enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Very kind of
I
you.
love that you said motor cars because that sounded like something that would have come out of a Bowie lyric.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was just thinking of like Panic in Detroit,
Mhm.
particularly, right? All that imagery about Detroit. And yeah, yes. So Greg, do you have any, or Greg isn't here with this. So Lynn, do you have anything else or
Oh, I have loads of things.
okay.
I think I'm getting tanked out though because
Oh yeah, no worries.
I didn't get enough sleep last night. And
Oh,
I was
okay.
very early. My cats wake me up really early sometimes, and I made them wait an hour before we had breakfast because I said I have to see the dawn come up first. The
Oh
dawn's coming
wow.
up late right now. I mean, after 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So this is too early. Until I see the dawn light in the sky, we're not going to go have breakfast. So, but eventually we did. But I'm yeah, I'm tired out.
No worries. Okay. So okay, so Greg is back with us. Greg, I would love to have you read anything.
Oh, sure. Um, well, I have one book that was inspired by one of David Bowie's personas.
Oh, nice.
Um, Very happily, which is right over here. Um, so this book, it's funny. It's called it's an autobiographical play, but it's written in poetry. So with a little bit genre bending and so on and so forth. At any rate, the original title was Je suis Pierrot, or Pierrot. Pierrot being one of the, just this sad French clown always getting into trouble. And not one, I sent that out to so many publishers and nobody wanted anything to do with it. And I mean, I don't know. I changed the title of this book like 10 times, finally got accepted. But that sometimes you have to do it, play it that way. So let me see. It turned out pretty well, this book. It has a foreword by the specter of Professor Jacques Derrida. We had a little seance.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you had a seance. And what it did, I'm very curious, was there a deconstructive sort of element to that seance? I mean, was the meaning of that seance and his communication to you endlessly deferred, or did you get anything out of it? Like
As a ghostly presence within these reflections, I, Derrida, find kinship in the lingering echoes of philosophical inquiry. Jacques Derrida, The Spectral Realm. All right, so let me just pull up a poem. I'm sorry for the delay.
No worries.
He taught English and critical theory at my alma mater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had escaped before I could take any coursework from him. But yeah, he took over shortly after I left.
Yeah, he was quite the character. One of my professors was her daughter is his godchild, which in some of these academic circles can be very, people get very, I was the, so a lot of people will say Professor Spivak, as a translator of grammatology, is the leading deconstructionist of our times. And then some other people get, there's all kinds of, it's a controversy. um, okay, I'll just read this one. Act 3, Scene 5, How Wittgenstein 2.0 has been a fool in love. Wittgenstein 2.0 has a dumb persistence. It is because he's an idealist. Rejection makes Wittgenstein 2.0 giddy. He makes bold moves only. Wittgenstein 2.0 cannot understand subtlety. His soul is one most juvenile. How we should all pity Wittgenstein 2.0. Moral 18. Wittgenstein 2.0 is no Casanova. Moral 19. Wittgenstein 2.0 lacks subtlety. So what I really had a lot of fun writing the introduction to this book in particular, because it was very philosophical. One of the reasons really this book was so hard pressed to get published was because it is very experimental in a way that not necessarily people would enjoy, but if you weren't a philosopher or something like that, it's got a lot of philosophy of language breakdowns into it. But so I started some of the stanzas with directives because it's sort of, and this was even before it was a play, it was like this, and it lent to the fact of its becoming a play. So, for example, one of these other poems will start Yawp 2, like a Walt Whitman Yawp. So, and then View 5, View 6, Curse 2, Damn myself for being a fool. Blab 1, I am better than Descartes. Blab 2, This is a revolution in thought. The title of his book, Philosophy of a Fool. Moral 32, Forbid Wittgenstein 2.0 from thought. And just at the end, there's always these little morals, like self-deprecating morals. But anyway, so it's such a pleasure to read for you. You all. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's and it's like it's light, it's fun. As which is one of your favorite words that fun is like a synecdoche of Greg Tomaini is
Oh,
the
exactly.
word
Fun.
fun, 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 fun. I mean, your kind of fun is my kind of fun.
Cheers.
We're the same person. You know who else is the same person as we are? Nelson Gary,
Hmm.
right?
It's funny.
Nobody
It's
knows
like
him better than I do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
By the way, I don't mean to be rude. If anybody would like some of my granola, I'm more than happy to pass it around. It's just that I have to make sure I don't get low blood sugar. So I've been eating granola, not trying to be rude.
No,
Oh,
no,
no
not at
worries
all.
whatsoever.
I have hypoglycemia as well, so feel free to anybody feel comfortable, it's unnatural what we're doing. So okay, so I think maybe that's it, right? We've had a really good um discussion and readings, and we all read some stuff. So um I very I'd like to thank my special guests, Lynne Bronstein, Amelie Franck, and G.R. Tomaini, Greg Tomaini, and hopefully we'll, my concept has been to kind of have almost like a panel. I mean, we wouldn't have to meet all the time or whatever, but just maybe every couple of months or so, we could have, like, I thought this is incredibly interesting and synergistic, and the way that we all kind of spark off one another's um flow or whatever, we strike sparks. And it's like I always think of Hunter S. Thompson and that line from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where and talking about the 60s, you could start strike sparks anywhere. And I sort of feel that we've got that. We can start, easy for me to say, so I won't even try.
Well, it was fun. It
Yeah,
was fun, especially getting to meet and hear Greg's work and hear him talk about his philosophical studies, because it's proof that philosophy is not a dead subject, not a dead discipline. It is continually alive, and thank God that we have students of his caliber and professors of Cornell. Sorry, I'm choking on granola. Cornell West character
Thank you so
teaching,
much.
because we do need the philosophers. There would be there would be no computer technology without philosophers. Philosophers invented machine language.
yeah.
Whenever you're told it's not really a meaningful subject, as we English majors are told these days, I like to point out, if we didn't have philosophers, we wouldn't have computers.
And if we didn't have Lord Byron, we wouldn't have programming language.
His daughter, right, became a big
His daughter was
Yeah,
a mathematician.
yes,
exactly, right, yeah.
yeah. And she wrote the first
Lovelace or something like that.
Lovelace, yeah, Ada Lovelace. She wrote the first computer programs because the prototype of the computer was called the Babbage. It was the something like the Babbage engine or the Babbage device, and that was created by a guy named George Babbage. And what happened was that it was based on the Jacquard loom, which was a sort of the first mechanized loom, which was responsible for the Luddites, the Luddites rebelling against the Jacquard loom. And I'm sort of a little bit ironically or not, Ada Lovelace was the daughter of George Gordon Lord Byron. So if we didn't have Lord Byron, we wouldn't have essentially everything goes back to everything else, and we wouldn't have computer programming because it was based on the Jacquard looms were programmed with a sort of a punch card, and that's how that was, the genius. I don't know if it was Babbage or if it was Ada or in collaboration. They came up with this idea. Hey, maybe this is an analogy of we can mass produce fabrics, right? Clothing, using this sort of high speed, for the time, high speed computational techniques. Why don't we take that and turn and just take it over to just raw data, whatever it is?
But you know what? Byron's first speech in Parliament was a defense of the Luddites.
Yes, that's right.
Interesting.
Yes, interesting. And yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's ironic, because we wouldn't have, I mean, and
One thing connects to another.
yeah, I think we have some challenges with AI. I think AI is the new Jacquard loom.
It has good points and bad points. I'm something of a Luddite myself in a lot of ways, and sometimes I say myself, the only thing about computer typing, I mean about word processing, that I like is the deletion key. That would be a great deal. It's helped
Oh, I
me
love that
to
word.
have manuscripts that are readable, but there's a lot of other stuff that I lived without for a long time that I can still live without. So if it all were to be destroyed, I might fare better than other people because I lived without a lot of these things for so long that I don't feel the need of some of them. And yet, on the other hand, sometimes you do feel the need. So sometimes you just need to microwave something.
I
Okay.
love that. Stephen King once wrote a story called Word Processor of the Gods, where if you pressed delete, then the thing disappears.
Microsoft
I am
does it on
afraid
its
of
own.
I am afraid of WordPress, but I do have to learn it at some point.
Mhm. What is WordPress? That's a
It's
I
for
think
blogging.
I think I have one. What's really easy is Substack. If y'all want to submit things to me, I started something called the Small Bear Review. I just publish people like my friends like Catfish McDarris and Daniel G. Sneathan, and anybody is welcome to, just send me stuff and I'll put it up there, whatever. I mean, if you have something that you're not particularly concerned that it goes to a highfalutin type of, like whatever. I don't know what I mean. Marie LeCrevin and Juliet Cook, I certainly have a hell of a lot of respect for them. I think that they're amazing people, amazing. And I have the good fortune of collaborating with like many, many times with Sneathan and with Juliet, and we've been published all over the place. I mean, a lot of stuff on Horror Sleaze Trash Press, which is another great market for primary sources, of stuff. And Catfish and I are working on a number of different projects, but um, he's writing the foreword to my book, The Twilight of the Doom Hippies, which is the third and final, well, never say never, but the final installment in the Doom Hippies trilogy, which is kind of dark satire of a kind of a Mendipian, Catullus, Juvenal, William S. Burroughs, but with a lot of Borges and everything, Borges, Ibsen, Chekhov, Shakespeare, a lot of Rimbaud, a lot of Baudelaire. Oh, if you don't mind, maybe we could just conclude because I really like this translation that I did of the double chamber, and let's see. Okay, the Dairy Queen of the Future, um, the double room. It's the double room. Page 100. Okay, page 100. Okay, this is a free translation of a prose poem by Charles Baudelaire. The double room. A room like a sacred dream, through which stagnant atmosphere creeps. The slow tint of rose and blue. In this room, the soul takes a bath, perfumed by desire and regret. The blue and rosy tints suggest the evening light, a voluptuous dream during an eclipse, languishing, spread out, prostrate. The room looks like it's dreaming, as though endowed with a sleepwalking life, both vegetable and mineral. The fabrics speak the language of mutes, like the flowers, the sky, the sleeping stars. On the walls, no artistic abominations intrude. Relative to a pure dream, to an impression not analyzed, but deeply deferred. Okay, so we get Derrida in there. A positive act is blasphemy. Here, everything is sufficiently lighted and basks in a delicious dark harmony. the choicest aroma in which is mingled a light humidity, swims in this atmosphere, which rocks the soul with hothouse sensations. Muslin reigns abundantly before the window and the bed, dropping in snowy cascades. The idol, the queen of dreams, languishes on the couch. But how did she come to be here? Who brought her here? What magic power installed her on the throne of voluptuous dreams? And what does it matter? She is here, and I recognize her. That is enough. Consider well those eyes. So piercing, they cut through the evening light like twin lasers. These subtly terrible mirrors, which I recognize by their soul-shuddering malice. They devour the gaze of her admirers. I have made a study of these black stars that command such curiosity and admiration. There are no more minutes. There are no more seconds. Time has disappeared, leaving space for the reign of eternal pleasure. What lovely demon do I have to thank to be surrounded by mystery, silence, and a perfumed peace? O beatitude! That which we commonly call life has nothing in common with this supremely delightful condition, which I savor minute by minute, second by second. But a knock lands on the door, a dull and icy reverberation like a pickaxe straight to the stomach. And then a ghost comes in. A slut come to torture me in the name of the law. An infamous bailiff come to cry foul and litter my own suffering life with her trash? Or maybe it's some lackey sent by my editor to ask what the fuck happened to the manuscript that was due last week. The paradise of rooms, ruled by the Queen of Dreams, the sylph. All this magic is dispersed by the ghost's brutal knock, which makes me think of a line in The Importance of Being Earnest about the the Wagnerian, knock, right? The horror. I remember it well. Yes, this filthy boarding house where I'm always bored. My studio apartment with furniture like dirty drunks, no heat, and the battered radiators spattered with gobs of phlegm. These sad, dusty windows, the rain is tagged with its own graffiti. Incomplete or heavily redacted manuscripts, the almanac in which someone has blotted out the dates with a pencil because of the fear. And this perfume from another world, a liquor I had drunk till pleasantly blurred. It's been replaced by the odor of stale tobacco mingled with some kind of hideous dry rot. Even though the room is narrow, it's filled with disgust. I've only one friend left. The oldest, most terrible, opium, who, like all my friends, betrays me with each caress. There's no longer any doubt. Time reigns now, and along with this hideous old asshole comes a parade of regrets, spasms, anguish, nightmares, hatred, and nervous tics. I can assure you that the seconds are strongly and solemnly accentuated as each one gushes from the clock, saying, I am life, which is unbearable. There's only 1 second in human life which brings truly good news, except that same news gives everybody the inexplicable tang of fear. I'm sorry to report that as we speak, time, that brutal dictator, has deposed eternity. Wielding a double goat, it pushes me like cattle. Come on, slave. Welcome to hell. And that's Baudelaire, And I think that's life itself, right? We're living in the double chamber. The double chamber is like between heaven and hell. Um, and we want to wake up, man, from that duality and enter the 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 sea, to be like the drunken boat. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I, why not? Why not be the drunken boat, the waves, the ocean, the sky, the seagulls, the algae, the womb. I mean, then you wouldn't have to worry about identity. Those are, what is it? Those are those eyes were coral made. Um, those are pearls that were his eyes, right? Those are pearls that were his eyes. And that kind of dissolution of the self, the boundaries of the self, of the ego, where it's beautiful, right? It's eternity. Eternity is in love with the productions of time. That's what William Blake said. You know. Anyway, I didn't mean to get heavy, but just it would be nice to not to have to deal with time so much. Because we're all, I mean, that's we have to eventually just adopt this, and I'll upload it to my YouTube channel, and we'll have this on a little piece of heaven, I think, a little piece of heaven. Have this preserved as a documentation, because I had to sacrifice all 8 episodes of the Smol Bear and Pickle Show, and including the one that we did with Greg here. And I'm really big, I would just start all over again for 3 years of my life. So I didn't mean to get all heavy. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, you took us on a very Coleridgean journey with that last one. Very
Yeah.
much so.
I mean, I got you want to, I mean, Coleridge is right here. He's my friend. I just got him at arms, not at arm's length, because it's within the crook of my arm. I have, Coleridge, because you got to have some Coleridge, right? Am I right?
Well, you have to if you're going to understand how we look at things and incorporate them into ourselves to create something entirely new. It's just part of the journey.
Yeah, whether that's intertextual or food or semen
Granola.
or whatever, breath. And Julia Kristeva, I don't know, objection, right? What's the uncanny? The uncanny is us. The uncanny is us. Vomit, dead bodies, corpses, that's us. It gives you that kind of frisson of fear, but it's also curiosity, morbid curiosity. I mean, what's that?
Well,
That's a body, you know?
well, speaking of bodies, this has been very enjoyable, but I can't sit for more than 2 hours in this chair that I'm in.
Oh
So
yeah, no worries.
I'd like to say farewell now. Thank you.
Okay.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so
you.
much, Lynn. Thank you for being with us. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for having us
sharing your,
on today.
thank
Thank you
you so much.
so much. It's been an enjoyable conversation.
Thank you, Amelie. I really appreciate it. And Greg, you're beautiful people. And could I get a squeezins? I mean, could we do a squeezy hugs? Because
How do we do that?
well, it's like this, right? It's just a basic squeezins, and you can
It's a hug. I send you a hug.
okay. Okay. So
Cheers.
cheers. Okay. So long, and I'll see you on the Facebooks.
Yes.
All right. Be well,
Okay.
everybody.
Be well,
Have a
everybody.
good day.
Have a good day. Goodbye.
Bye.